and welcome to yet another PM Entertainment Blu-ray review from us here at the PM Entertainment Podcast. I'm John Cross, and on this video we're going to be talking about 3 of the PM Entertainment Blu-rays that have been released by Fokus Media over in Switzerland, who has been putting out PM Entertainment movies on Blu-ray over the last few months. You can go over to Fokus Media, I'll put the link below here, to pick up your Blu-rays. They do now ship to America and in fact to Europe and various other places. And predominantly I've been collecting the media book versions. By the time I got around to hearing about Fokus Media and the fact they were putting out PM Entertainment movies on Blu-ray, and I was trying desperately to get hold of them in the US, and at the time I wasn't aware that Fokus Media's website actually shipped to the US. In fact, it might not have done at the time, but it does now. And I was trying to find the movies on brotherbelial.com. The 2 that were already sold out, unsurprisingly maybe, were the Anna Nicole Smith movies that I think were the first 2 that Fokus Media released, and that was Skyscraper and To the Limit. And the media books of those had sold out, so I picked up the standard Blu-ray versions of those. So this is what they call a media book. All right, so this is To Be the Best, or as they call it overseas, Karate Tiger 7. And then this is the standard Skyscraper Blu-ray. So it's typical Blu-ray case. It's all the same content. There were some of the media books that were released by Fokus Media that had some special inclusions. The media books also have the DVD, but I just wanted to make sure that I had at least all the PM Entertainment movies that were available on Blu-ray, so I did pick up Skyscraper. Now, I was going to cover these 3 films today on this video. One is To Be the Best, Karate Tiger 7, which I have on the media book. One is Skyscraper, which I have on the regular Blu-ray. And then lastly, media book version of Riot, or as they call it overseas, Nacht der Terrors, which is Night of Terrors, basically. This is a Gary Daniels movie with Sugar Ray Leonard. Now, for anyone who listens to the PM Entertainment Podcast, you're going to know that I have already covered quite extensively the movie Skyscraper and the movie To Be the Best on the PM Entertainment Podcast already. In fact, we interviewed Michael Worth from To Be the Best and did pretty good comprehensive episodes on both movies. So for the purposes of this video, I'll definitely talk about the Blu-rays themselves and the way the films look. But if you want detailed review of the film, please do check out the PM Entertainment Podcast. So to that end, I'm mainly going to focus on Gary Daniels and Sugar Ray Leonard in the movie Riot. All right, so let's start with Riot, or Nacht der Terrors, which is a fantastic film. It's classic PM, and I think the fact that it is now on Blu-ray is genuinely a cause for extreme celebration. So the movie is a really interesting concept. It's essentially, what if we did Escape from New York, but instead of a post-apocalyptic thing where New York's now a prison, what if we do it during a riot in Los Angeles? Obviously based off the Rodney King LA riots, but in this movie, essentially, it is the police have killed 3 black children, believing them to be in gangs incorrectly. Well, this movie came out in 96, so next year it'll be 30 years old, this movie, and is sadly still going on. What's interesting about Riot, though, is that while it definitely takes that as the basis of its sort of setting and makes a few little comments about it at the beginning, that is sort of where the movie stops in terms of any heavy messaging. And from there, it simply sets up the fact that this section of the city is basically now in the control of the rioters / the gangs, etc., and no one can go in or out. So it sort of sets up this Escape from New York premise. In the midst of all this, the British ambassador's daughter is kidnapped. That actually, and this is sort of where it gets really interesting, the movie in the middle of it adds the IRA, or some former IRA terrorists. And what's interesting about that is it was Gary Daniels who, when they came to make Riot, at this point, Gary Daniels had done several films for PM. Riot is really interesting because he also produces it. And when, by this point, him and Joseph knew each other pretty well, Joseph Mehi, the director, and he went to Joseph and he said, look, I've got a couple of stipulations for the next movie we make. I would love to do an action movie at Christmas. Obviously, Die Hard and Lethal Weapon and various other movies had done that before. And then the other thing is he would really love to play a British character. Obviously, Gary Daniels is British. And weirdly, in a lot of his films, unlike where in, say, Jean-Claude Van Damme films, the writers trip over each other to kind of come up with reasons why a Belgian would be running around the US doing various things. In most of Gary Daniels' movies, he's either doing a kind of quasi-American accent or they just don't bother to explain it. In this one, he definitely wanted to be British. And what's interesting about him doing that, and why I think it's really, creativity is almost at its best when it has strong parameters, is that by doing that, you then open the door to the IRA storyline and for the twist in the middle of the movie. And so it's one of those wonderful PM Entertainment movies where they've gone, let's bring in all these aspects of it. Let's have a little bit of Escape from New York. Let's have the Warriors. Let's have a bit of Die Hard and Lethal Weapon with the Christmas setting. When PM Entertainment does that and they kind of stick to it, while also, as I said, coming up with what I think is a fairly, interesting and unique plot in the midst of all this, they're almost always successful. And it's a really good thing to note for independent filmmakers who are sat down struggling, who are sat there going, well, what am I going to write about? I've got to come up with something really original. I've got to come up with something. You don't have to do that. You can really just cherry pick a bunch of ideas from other stuff and then put it through your vision. What PM Entertainment do really, really well is they put everything through their vision, through their microscope, through the way they want to make movies. And so, yeah, right, they might borrow a bunch of stuff from other places, but once they put it into the pot and they start stirring it up, it becomes a PM Entertainment movie. It ceases to be all these other movies, although you recognize the setup. Once we're underway and Gary Daniels is going through this area of Los Angeles and basically going through set piece to set piece to set piece to set piece, it becomes very much its own thing. It basically leans on two things that they have. One is Spiro Rosatos. They're like, we have to have Spiro again after the success of Rage. They wanted Spiro again to do all the action set pieces. Then you've got Gary Daniels, who is obviously feeling a lot more confident as the leading man, but also as a producer is able to say, well, let's make sure in this movie we really show off what I can do. Because in this movie, I'm ex-SAS and I can kick people's asses all the way through the movie. I don't have to just be like, well, I'm a mild-mannered husband and teacher who happens to know a bit of Muay Thai. This is a guy who's been highly trained, so we can just have action galore and Gary Daniels doing what he does best with the high kicks and the punches and everything else. I would say the third strength of this movie is the combination of cinematography and art direction, where and this is one of the reasons why it's so fucking beautiful that these movies are now on Blu-ray, is that Ken Blakey, a regular cinematographer for PM Entertainment, he shot so many of their movies. Him and Rick Pepin basically shot the bulk of all their films and established very much the PM Entertainment look. Ken is at his best, I think, with night shoots. Ken just knows how to shoot at night, and he is the best when it comes to that. Ken's nighttime photography in this is absolutely phenomenal. It's rich and dark and inventive and beautiful. And you have, the Blu-ray just allows all the Christmas lights in the background and the burning cars and the explosions and everything in the background to just give you this wonderful bouquet wash of light and action and violence and stuff that's happening behind him. While in the foreground, the Blu-ray is really highlighting kind of the crisp shadows and beautiful coloring of the lead actor or whoever's in the foreground. It's one of those movies, a lot like I found Guardian Angel, the Cynthia Rothrock film, to get better as it goes on. Some of the set pieces at the beginning of the movie, and in fact the whole kind of opening with the kids burning a pizza box in the oven, and even the fight sequence in the pool hall at the beginning where they want to have a Gary Daniels, Sugar Ray Leonard fight sequence before they drop Gary Daniels into the Riot area. And so they have in typical PM fashion, they have a group of white softball players who come into a bar where Sugar Ray Leonard and Gary Daniels are talking. And because as Sugar Ray Leonard turns around with his drink and accidentally knocks into these guys and they get a little bit of beer on their softball uniforms, of course a fight breaks out because they bump into a local Los Angeles softball team that just happen to all be bigots. So they're like, oh, well, we can just have a softball. As long as these softball team are bigots, it's perfectly all right that Gary and Sugar Ray hand them their asses for the next 5 minutes of screen time. That set piece and a couple of the early set pieces when he's first in sort of the Riot Zone, especially like the hockey, like out of nowhere, there's a warrior gang of hockey players who attack him. And for some reason, those couple of opening sequences, while they should be a lot more dynamic and a lot more exciting and should drop you into the movie and make you go, yes. For some reason, the earlier set pieces in this film are pretty scrappy. However, once it's nighttime, once Gary is in the Riot Zone, once we've established who the bad guys are, once we've established what his mission is, etc., 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 the movie then relaxes into itself. It genuinely does. Like the first act of the movie is pretty like scrappy and all over the place. But it almost feels like where Spiro is focusing on these incredible set pieces, whether they're the fights or whether they're car stunts or whether they're explosions or whatever they are, as the set pieces get more complicated and more over the top and more exaggerated, that perhaps Spiro and his editors and perhaps the PM editor and various other people kind of got together and was like, let's look at the best way to do these. Because some of the set, by the time you get about an hour into it, there is an incredible sequence set in a car junkyard with just like rows and rows and rows and rows of junked out cars. And Gary has this woman who he saved, the daughter of the British ambassador. And he sort of says, look, the end of the Riot Zone is just about 10 minutes away. You run off, go meet up with my friend or whatever, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to deal with these IRA terrorists. And there's this great cat and mouse sequence where the terrorists have all kind of broken off. They're all looking for Gary Daniels and this woman amongst the sort of car graveyard. And it's one of those where Gary can kind of take out 2 or 3 at a time or 1 at a time or whatever it is and have sort of lots of little mini fights amongst this sort of tense cat and mouse. And I think it's probably one of the best sort of tense momentary action kind of sequences that I've ever seen PM do. It's really, really well structured. It's really, really well edited. And you've got a fantastic score by, I believe, Jim Halfpenny that just ties the whole thing together. And by the time you get to that at the 1 hour mark, Riot is just firing on all cylinders. So definitely like by the midway point and then the last like 40 minutes, just absolutely tremendous. We get all sorts of interesting set pieces, whether it's the church shootout, the junkyard sequence, the sort of futuristic motorbike gang bursts out of a building and attacks Gary Daniels. That motorbike sequence features a bit where Gary Daniels lights one of the motorbike guys on fire. Then while ablaze, the motorbike guy gets back on the bike and chases Gary Daniels down the street before he hits another car, flips over, and explodes in midair. It is one of those sequences, especially because Gary Daniels is really in the scene, where it's probably the best actor Gary Daniels has ever done, because as this like guy who's completely head to toe lit on fire is getting back on his motorbike to chase him, it cuts to Gary Daniels' face, who's really in the scene. You see the burning guy, you see Gary Daniels, they're really in the scene together. And Gary Daniels' face is a mixture of fear, confusion, and what the fuck is going on. And it's brilliant. He then has to run down the street being chased by this flaming biker. It's a truly, truly phenomenal scene, only topped by the very ending action sequence, which is just, it's just pure Spiro from start to finish. It's got everything you want, from car chases in a confined, crazy space, to lots of car crashes, to people hanging off the roofs of speeding cars, to cars shooting off the top of car parks down into the street and exploding, to someone hanging off a giant rope as a car explodes beneath them. I mean, it's got everything you possibly want, and it is a breathtaking finale. A couple of the other things I'll say about Riot that are really interesting. It's one of the few times where PM Entertainment are shooting on the Paramount backlot, because obviously they need kind of a controlled street scene that they can kind of dress multiple different ways and make it look like part of the whole city and stuff. One of the interesting things about it, and this is pure PM, is that it's so clearly a New York scene backlot. And it's probably sort of the only thing that kind of throws you off about the movie. It would be totally fine because you could kind of just suspend disbelief and go, all right, okay, so it's clear that this exterior scene is not matching with this interior scene, and this is clearly Los Angeles, and this is clearly a New York set. It would be absolutely fine. You could suspend disbelief. You could figure it out. Except that then during one of the final shootouts, and I don't understand this is the only thing that I'm just like, you got to love PM, because clearly they were like, we just got to get this filmed, and it doesn't matter anymore. There is a East Village bakery in the background. And as far as I'm aware, Los Angeles or any of its small suburbs and townships does not have an East Village. But anyway, as long as you can kind of suspend disbelief and go, well, they're in New York, but they're not. They're in Los Angeles, but they're in New York, but they're in Los Angeles. As long as you can figure that out, you'll be fine. And in fact, one of the things that I wanted to make mention of in this review of all three of the Blu-rays is just how phenomenal and wonderful and joyous it is to have these PM Entertainment movies in high def on Blu-ray. If anything, it completely and utterly confirms what I've always felt about PM, and that is that for an independent studio playing around with very small budgets, they went on and above to try and make the most Hollywood-looking movie they possibly could. And they employed real talent and real skill and exceptional collaboration just to phenomenal effects. And seeing this, having watched them on VHS and seen a few on DVD, when you sit down and put one of the Blu-rays in, you're just reminded of just how incredible these movies were. Like when you watch Riot, if you're watching this, please, if you're watching this, you love PM films or you love 90s straight-to-video action films, whatever it is, please go to the Focus Media site or wherever you can find them. eBay has a bunch of these Focus Media Blu-rays as well. Wherever you can find them, buy a couple of them of a film you already know and put it in, because they just look so good. So many of the straight-to-video action films these days just look like straight-to-video action films, and we're all very used to just kind of shrugging that off. When I go back to these PM films, especially on Blu-ray, they just look so good. In terms of Focus Media's output, I think that while they all look great, that they're all good, I really do think that their Riot disc represents another step up. I think this is one of the best discs they've done, and I just think it looks, sounds absolutely fantastic. We get a Gary Daniels interview all about Riot on here, a couple of Spiro Rosatos interviews, both about Riot and about working for PM. We also get a couple of behind-the-scenes videos about Spiro working on various different stunt things on here. So the special features are great. The cover, the booklet, and everything is great. And the look of this movie is absolutely fantastic. So this is, if you haven't picked up any yet, and you're a fan of the Rage, Riot, and Recoil, I would pick up Riot tomorrow. I thought it was an absolutely fantastic disc. Similarly to Riot, I thought their media book for To Be the Best was fantastic. The film looks absolutely terrific. I talked again on the podcast about this, really highlighting Rick Pepin's cinematography, about the depth of field, about the incredible use of like the Vegas neon and Vegas lighting, and inside casino kind of casino light bulbs and stuff like that, being able to use it for that lovely soft blurred background while they're in the foreground. Some of the shooting on the balcony when Michael Worth is talking to his girlfriend and Rick shoots them from like another window around the other side of the hotel, so you get this wonderful depth of field. This really does look the business on Blu-ray as well. This is another fantastic set. The big extra on this disc is an interview with fight choreographer Art Camacho, which is fantastic. There's also some martial arts stuff with Stephen Vincent Lee that's pretty great. But in terms of look and feel of the movie and overall Blu-ray you might want to pick up if you're into fight films, tournament films, 90s films, and you love the work of Michael Wirth and stuff, and Martin Kove from the Karate Kid franchise, who's also in this. This is definitely one worth picking up, and I really, really love this. We covered it on the podcast, as I said, so check that out. And so lastly then, the Skyscraper Blu-ray. Of the three movies, Skyscraper is probably, in terms of look and feel, the worst of the three movies. It's not shot particularly well. Most of it's inside a very bland and boring kind of office setting. There's not a lot of like soft background focus. It's not in Vegas. It's not on the seedy streets of Los Angeles. It's just in a very kind of bland beige office building. You do get that incredible action sequence towards the beginning. And obviously, as you heard on the podcast, we reviewed the film, considering what the film is, when the film was made, how Anna Nicole was feeling at the time, etc., etc. The fact that it comes out as cohesive as it is with the action that it has, and the fact that it's by far probably the most popular of the PM Entertainment films for lots of reasons, not least of which is I think people watch it ironically in a sort of so bad it's good type way, which I'm not a fan of doing. There's lots to enjoy in Skyscraper, the movie. It's one of the least PM Entertainment films, while also being one of the most PM Entertainment films. And the only way I can explain that is go watch 50 PM Entertainment movies and then watch Skyscraper and you go, oh yeah, it's kind of really, really PM while also not being PM at all. So I can't sit here and necessarily say that the Blu-ray is helping a bunch of cinematography pop that otherwise it wasn't. However, just in general, whether you've seen Skyscraper on streaming or on DVD or VHS or wherever you've seen Skyscraper, the Blu-ray is definitely the best it's looked, the best it sounds. In terms of special features, what is truly great about this package is not just the interview with Art Camacho that you get, but you also get a ton of behind-the-scenes footage. Now, not a lot of behind-the-scenes footage was shot for most PM Entertainment films. Some was, but not really. They rarely had what they call like an EPK crew, which is electronic press kit, where they're normally on set, either interviewing the actors when they're not acting or filming behind the scenes stuff or whatever. And they would do that to market the movie and then later on to use as sort of DVD features and things like that. Well, these movies were put out before that was really a consideration. However, I think because Anna Nicole Smith was on set, because I think the set had, quite a few issues, I think effort was probably made to shoot some of the behind the scenes stuff, because I think they probably thought this was going to be a big deal for Anna Nicole Smith fans when it came out. And it turned out to be, so it was a right idea. But it's really great, therefore, to have the Blu-ray and to have all that behind the scenes footage on the Blu-ray. So they're really doing all they can to get as many either new interviews and featurettes, as well as utilizing old behind the scenes footage or previously shot EPK stuff or whatever it is on these Blu-ray discs. So I do these videos, A, to let people know that these Blu-rays are out there, B, to sing PM Entertainment's praises, but mainly I do them because I just think what Fokus Media are doing is just getting better and better with each new disc. And I just think that as a company that had, as far as I'm aware, primarily just been in Switzerland and Germany and parts of Europe and things like that, and probably not that well known, not like an Arrow or a 88 Films or a Vinegar Syndrome or a Shout Factory, not like those. For them to be putting this out the way they're putting them out, and for them to be getting all the cast over to Germany to do special conventions and things and having special signature editions. Kathleen Kinmont has done a big signature edition for Final Impact, for example. I've heard that Jeff Speakman is doing a signature edition of Running Red. So there's just so much effort, love, passion and stuff put in predominantly by Claudio Ulrich that I just want to continue to highlight their phenomenal work. So thanks ever so much, everyone, all at Fokus Media. Thanks ever so much for everyone watching this video here today. Go listen to the PM Entertainment podcast. Go rate and review us. Subscribe to our channel. Like, comment, all that good stuff. Go over to our website, all the links of which will be below in the description. But if you want to see more and more PM Entertainment, you want to see us doing more and more interviews and special things here on the channel, if you want to see more and more Blu-rays and things being covered, keep watching, keep promoting, keep sharing, keep liking, keep commenting, hit the subscribe button, all that good stuff. I don't know all the lingo, but I know that we're only as successful as our followers, listeners, fans, whatever you want to call yourselves. So the more you support, the more we can do. Anyway, thanks so much. Stay cool and go buy some PM Entertainment on Blu-ray.